Yo, what's up, people? I'm your host, Jay Will, and I would like to welcome you to Inspire God's People, where we balance faith and business to guide you to your purpose. This is episode 227, Offended by Order, the reason why most people fail. All right, so today I got a couple things on my mind I want to kick it with y'all about, and the goal is really to help you go from point A to point B, C, D, E, wherever you going. You know what I'm saying? But the reason I threw all those other letters in there is because a lot of times we say we want to go, from point A to point B. I don't like that ain't really that far. But if you want to go from A to Z, saying there's a lot in between. A lot of times we really want to just skip from A to Z without hitting those other letters and going through a process. So if you've been rocking with this show for however many years we've been doing this, then you know that on the first 100 or so episodes, I always talked about the process because I really do believe, man, like there is a way to be successful. There is a way to do things. But I think what happens is sometimes we mess ourselves up because we really just don't want to follow rules. Let's just be real. Like sometimes out here, you just like, bruh, I really just kind of want to get the result. I ain't really trying to do everything that it takes to produce it. You feel what I'm saying? So today we're gonna take a step back. I'm gonna give you some thoughts, some ideas, maybe some inspiration just around how you get to the success that you want. You know what I'm saying? So let's do it. First things first, look, there's a lot of people out there that wants to be somewhere, someone, something different than whatever their current state is today. You feel what I'm saying? It's like some of us sit back and we got these secret dreams and goals, and maybe a lot of times we're afraid to act on it because we don't really know what to do, or we don't want to do what needs to be done. And I think both are a problem, right? So if you don't know what to do, I think then you need to spend some time and learning and educating yourself, and maybe getting some help from others just to know, like, how do I do this thing? But then there's this fascinating thing where sometimes people actually know what to do and they still don't do it. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, in both scenarios, it's like, hey, you sitting here in your life and you know good and well you want something different. Have you ever been there? I've been there before, where it's like you just kind of know like this ain't working. Like whatever situation you're currently in, no matter what it's related to, right? It's like this is not working for who I want to be, for what I want to do, for my goals, my dreams, and my visions. And I think it's interesting in life that some people get to that state and they stay there, right? And then, whether depression comes or, doubt, you start, stop taking care of yourself, like all these things. Like, and again, like a lot of us been there in life at some point, been at a place that felt like a dead end. That's like, I want something different, but I can't seem to move beyond this point, right? And today I want to kind of push you a little bit and give you a head start, and give you some momentum if you kind of find yourself in that place. And even if you're not in that place, even if you just like, man, I don't know what it is. I'm kind of sluggish. I'm just mentally like, I know I want to be something. I know I want more, but it's like, I'm not motivated to do it. Right. And today I'm going to talk to you about some things, to kind of point out why I think most people fail. And if you look at why most people fail, the point of doing that is so that you could prevent that and hopefully get to your own success. So, jumping into today's content, first thing I want to talk about is admiring others. So as it relates to like you're stuck in a place or you just have dreams or goals. Look, we on social media, y'all watching me, we kicking it. One of the most challenging things in the world today is just like, how do I manage admiring others? And I do think there's a good aspect to admiring others, and I think there's a bad aspect to it. You feel me? And so on the good side of admiring other people and like exposing yourself to other people is that it's exposure. So let's just say if I grew up in a scenario and I never traveled before, right? And then I'm like following some YouTube vloggers on their travel channels. Now, that could be a good thing because just me watching their channel can be exposing me to some things that I've never done before, right? And it could kind of that exposure can lead to me like dreaming and desiring like, oh, this could be dope, like, and wanting to do something different than what I'm doing or something different than what I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? Because the reality is some of us, we never seen nothing. We never been nowhere. And a lot of times, if you in that spot in life, it's going to take some effort or some exposure for you to kind of open yourself up to new opportunities versus being stuck in your bubble. A lot of people stuck in bubbles, bruh. Like you could be from a certain neighborhood, never left that neighborhood. It's like that's a bubble. And it's like no knock to your hood, no knock to your hometown. But if you ain't never seen nothing different, then you may have a limited view of life and not even realizing it, right? So, again, for you, just that exposure to others can be great. It can inspire you to do more. But then it's like, all right, at the same time, um, there's a negative side to admiring others and maybe admiration. I can talk, people. I can talk. I promise I can. Maybe admiration starts to turn into idolizing, right? So it's like it's cool for you to admire someone and like look at them and be inspired and be exposed and like, okay, that's dope. But I think what happens a lot of time for us today is our admiration at some point turns into idolizing. Now that could just mean that, all right, I'm gonna stay on this whole like social media, I'm exposed to people, whatever. I could start off watching you and just like, yo, all right, like I'm inspired by this person. And then at some point it could become like, yo, I'm watching you so much that I'm not even doing it myself. Like, so I'm watching you travel, I'm watching you live your life. And yeah, I like that. That's cool. But really now I'm like so into you that I'm not even into myself, right? So sometimes we can look at other people's lives so much that we're not taking action in our own lives. I think it's really important sometimes to turn our phones off, turn the TV off, like just mute the world in a sense, not literally the entire world, but mute those outside factors that could be influencing us in ways. And if it's never, quiet or you got real people around you that you know and love to kind of give feedback, talk about things, and then like work on your own life. I just think some of us get stagnant looking at other people. You know what it remind me of? Being in traffic. Like social media to me is like being in traffic and you got those gawkers and it's like this freeway is like, backed up. It's like all these cars, all these people, all this noise around me. And then I get up to what everybody's looking at and it's just like somebody, not even an accident a lot of times, just the police got somebody pulled over on the side of the road. And I'm like, this is what we was all looking at. This is what was stopping me from getting to where I'm going. And that's how it is sometimes when you are looking at other people's life so much. And sometimes the bad side of admiration and watching other people is you really just gawking. Like you could be going somewhere, but instead of you going where you going, you slowing down to gawk, right? What they doing ain't got nothing to do with you. And that's really the point. It's like you're looking at stuff sometimes that has nothing to do with you. Then there's like the fact that you really could just be coveting what they have now or lusting after what they have. And those are some tricky things. And I know that might sound deep. And some people are like, I'm not coveting, I'm not lusting. It's like, all right, cool. Sometimes it's subtle, bruh. Sometimes these things are subtle. With myself, I have to catch myself on subtle stuff that I wasn't really thinking I was doing. But then when I like really like step back, it's like, ooh, wait a minute, bro. You ain't even making the moves you said you were gonna make, but you really kind of like want what they got. Like that's a sign to unplug. That's a sign to step aside and say, this is how people fail. People fail by gawking, by lusting, by coveting. Look, the Bible tells us thou shalt not covet. You get what I'm saying? Like we shouldn't be looking at other people's lives and wanting what they want because they're not you. I'm not you. Like the goal of this podcast isn't to come on here and to be coveted and to, be like, hey, my life is better than yours. You should want to be like me. Like it's to kick it. It's to talk through some things and hopefully inspire you through some real conversation and dialogue. from a Christian perspective, right? But I think at the end of the day, outside of lusting and idolizing, I think one that's really common is that we look at other people's lives and we compare. And look, the reality is you done heard this 1,000 times. I've heard it 1,000 times. Comparison is the thief of joy, but some reason we still do it. Like we still compare ourselves to other, and you could really belittle yourself. You get what I'm saying? And sometimes in life, you have to be able to focus on what God is saying to you. And it's like a frequency, right? Like I think about growing up listening to the radio, and you might listen to a particular station. You turn to that frequency, you can only hear what they putting out. Like if you turn to the pop station, you are not getting country. You only in tune to the pop frequency. And I think sometimes what happens is we don't have our radios tuned to God's frequency and his channels, meaning we are not getting content that is intended to draw us closer to God. Sometimes we turn into every other station, we on every other page, we on every other meme or whatever. And if I'm being real, some of this stuff, like, some of this entertainment is killing us spiritually. Like, and I ain't here to judge you. Like, you got to manage that for yourself. But I'm telling you that because that is happening. And there is a way for things to go. There is a process to get you to success. And sometimes you have to step back and say, why am I not getting to where I'm going? Well, what frequency, what channel am I tuned into? And if you be real with yourself, you might realize, like, bro, I haven't been tuned into God's frequency. I haven't been listening to what God say about my life. I've been listening to what these rappers and entertainers say about life. And then that's where your influence is coming from. Not that all rappers are entertainers are bad, but the reality of it is, in the world we live in today, like, man, it just seemed like the substance is just lacking more and more each day, that the artists and what they talking about, the award shows and what they doing, it ain't really stuff that draws to God. It's just stuff that sound good, itching ear information, but it's not really like built for us to grow as believers, right? So that's another thing, is be careful how you admire others, right? Be careful not to let your admiration turn into idolizing, because you don't want to idolize nobody, right? Put no idols before God, right? These are like simple things that are really like 10 commandment, everyday things. But the reality is I'm human and you human. And sometimes we lose track and we lose sight. And sometimes we find ourselves doing things that we weren't even thinking we were doing because, like, yeah, we good people. I get it. You're a good person. I'm a good person. But if you listen to the last episode, good is not God. God is good, but good ain't necessarily God. Now, here's another thing, as I think about, like, why do most people fail, right? And again, we're talking about these things that you can apply to your life to prevent failure in your life from your goals. And this stuff could apply to different things: your faith, your family, your finances, your career. There's all type of things this can relate to. These are like life principles, right? Mentorship, man. Mentorship is missing these days. And I'm not saying that, I don't like making these generalized statements, because then it's probably somebody like, hey, I have a whole mentorship program. And yeah, I shout out to everybody out there that's doing these type of things. I know that good things are happening out there, right? But we specifically talking to people that may not be connected to that, people who are feeling stuck, people who aren't able to get where they want to go and they don't know why. Mentorship is missing. Now, mentorship is an interesting thing because you need willing mentors and you need willing mentees. And when you think about even what mentorship is, it's really someone guiding you somewhere because they've already been there. You feel me? And so it's like a person that's already been somewhere and already experienced some ups and downs saying, yo, I had some challenges getting here. Now I want to turn back and I want to give other people this information so that they don't have to struggle in the way that I did, or that they can be guided and maybe have a more efficient path to success and godliness. But what happens is you can have a willing mentor that's willing to give, but you need a willing mentee that's willing to receive. Now, when I say receive, reception is really interesting because you can receive things in different ways. Some people want to receive a simple handout, meaning they're looking for someone to give them the answers to the test. And some people come into mentorship thinking that that's what mentorship is. This person is going to give me all the answers and I'm not going to have to do no work. That's not what mentorship is. Mentors are looking to pour principles and give resources and opportunities to people who are actually willing to work and who are willing to be dedicated and committed and disciplined into going down a particular path in order to get to their success. And so a lot of times people are saying they want mentorship, but they really just want a handout. Like they saying like, yo, I want somebody to help me, but help doesn't mean do it for you. You feel me? Like some people like I'm trying to break this stuff down in the most simple way because I think sometimes we get in our own way because we're not actually thinking through the detail. Like you'll be sitting there like, yo, I want help. And you like really just want someone to do it for you. And the problem is this. Let's say I'm somebody that has, already built the car from the ground up. Like that's something I did. Like I didn't in reality, right? But let's say I'm a mechanic and I built this, let's say I built the engine, right? That's something I've heard from mechanics through the years, like, yo, I'm building an engine. So if you're a mechanic and you built an engine and then you get this young person that's like, yo, I like cars and they want to build an engine, but really they just want a car, right? Because they like cars. They don't necessarily like being like doing the work of a mechanic. So then they go to a mechanic and it's like, hey, yo, you built the engine, help me build mine. What ends up happening is there's two ways to approach this. If a person wants to receive help or mentorship, they would be going, and that might look like that mechanic saying, okay, you could come sit every week. You could come to my shop and watch me build an engine. That's not yours. You can watch me build an engine. And then I can give you tips on like what I'm doing as we go. Now, a good mentee will receive that and be like, yeah, that's cool. I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to come to your shop every week. I'm willing to put in effort because I want to give as much effort as you're giving to me, right? But what a lot of us do is like, oh man, like I was just hoping you could just like let's build mine. And then I could just sit and watch you build mine. But the problem there is you're not actually learning anything because I'm doing the work for you. And keep in mind, I've already done this before. I don't need to do it again, especially not for free. Like maybe I built my own engine for free and still maybe pay for parts, but like I've already done it. I don't need to build another engine. And some of us use these as opportunities to play the victim role to try to like make people feel sorry for not doing things for us, when really this person is a more willing mentor than you are as a mentee. You feel me? And so I think sometimes also, mentorship could be something that you're doing over time. So meaning someone is meeting with you every week and they're setting aside time on their calendar, you're setting aside time on yours, and there's some mutually beneficial, because for a mentor or someone who has wisdom to share, they get as much out of sharing as they do as the person that's receiving the information. But when a mentor or someone who has done something is put in a position where you want them to just do it for you or give you a handout, now they're being drained. So they're not being drained when they can give the information to someone who's willing to do work, right? Because they get fulfillment out of helping other people, but they don't get fulfillment out of doing it for you. And neither do you. They get drained. They didn't need to do it. And then you don't learn anything. So mentorship, again, it could be long term, but then there could also be mentorships for moments. And I know like I've had mentorship moments in my life. I always think about in the corporate world, you know what I'm saying? Like I've been working corporate for a major organization for 18 years. I just celebrated 18 years last week. And I think about my journey, like, to, all the jobs I've had. I think I've had 9 jobs in 18 years. So on average, every 2 years, I've been in a new role on average. It hasn't actually happened that way. But when I think about it, the beginning of my career, look, I'm from Detroit, coming from 7 Mile, coming from the hood. I went to college, of course, had my years in college to kind of grow a little bit. But when I graduated and came into corporate, it really was a new world for me. And it took me a few years to figure things out because I was so much of a fish out of water and so much of my mindset wasn't built on corporate or career success. Now, I did have ambition from day one. From day one, I knew I wanted to grow. So that's sometimes where I said at the beginning of the show, where everyone, not maybe everyone, but a lot of us want to be somewhere, something, or someone different than we are today. And I definitely wanted to be something and someone different and somewhere different. But I wasn't necessarily prepared from day one to understand what that looked like. And I wasn't prepared to put my pride aside to learn from other people. And a lot of times what happens is we think like, hey, this is how we think where I'm from. And again, I ain't grew up in no corporate structure. And so I kind of had my own thinking about like what success should look like. But what it should look like and what it does look like is two different things, right? And so I remember this might have been let's say if this was year 7, right? It was about year 7 in my career. And I had maybe been promoted to maybe just like 2 times. I think I was only promoted like twice in the first 7 years, right? Which would mean I've had like 7 promotions in the last 11 years. And so I had a slow start to my career, and I'm not blaming nobody but myself. This gentleman pulled me aside, and he was an executive already. And I'll call him Mr. Green, right? And Mr. Green saw me walking in the office, and he pulled me aside because what I used to do is I would just go in and out. Like I worked hard. I produced numbers. I was a salesperson doing really well. One of the number one salespeople in the Michigan market in the area of the company I worked in. But I wasn't networking. I wasn't, seeking sponsorship or mentors. I was just coming to work, working hard, and thought like, yeah, that should equal me getting a promotion, right? I remember he pulled me aside in his office, and I'll never forget this. I've seen him in the last couple of years at a charity event, and I got to thank him for that too. So I'm happy about that. But he pulled me aside and he was like, look, man, like, I see you coming in and out of here. Like, I'm sure you work hard. And he told me, he was like, hard work, that's not what gets you promoted. I was like, huh? He's like, yeah, you probably think your business, like just doing good is what gets you promoted. And I remember being taken back, like, yeah, like that's what makes sense. And he was like, no. He's like, you need mentors, right? These guides to guide you. And he didn't, I'm sure he realized, I didn't realize that in that moment, he was serving as a mentor for the moment, right? Because we only had this one conversation. He wasn't someone that I constantly met with. This was just someone, a older gentleman that saw me and maybe saw potential in me. I don't know what he saw, but he pulled me aside. And he said, you need mentors. Those are the people to guide you. Then you need sponsors. Those are the people that's willing to speak up on your behalf. And he was like, the work you're doing is maybe like 10% of it. It matters. You gotta do the work to be into consideration for the other things. But he was breaking down the percentages. He like, bro, like sponsorship might be 40%. And I was taken back because that was the first time I ever heard that in my life. And if I'm being real, it didn't make sense to me. But you know what? It didn't matter if it makes sense to me because he was telling me how things go. And I think for a lot of us, what we have to understand is things go a certain way in life. There's order, right? There's a way to buy and sell a house. There's guidelines around it. That's the order. There are tax rules around it. And if you know the rules, you can buy a house at the right time and get it for a good deal. You can sell a house at the right time and make some money, but you got to know how to do it. You got to know when is the time. When is it a buyer's market? When is it a seller's market? Some of us, we're so offended by order. We are offended by the way things go because they don't go in the way that we think they should go. Even though we don't have any experience or expertise in a particular area, we've never dabbled in that area. We're not, familiar with the laws or whatever. We just have this opinion from our vantage point and our bubble. Like, this is what I meant earlier when I said you can grow up in a bubble and like not even have experience about other things in life, not even have exposure, right? So Mr. Green gave me some information that I was then able to leverage, and it took time. It took me a lot of time to learn step by step, to dig. I didn't get mentors the next day. But what happened is he gave me something to think about, gave me some resources and some information to study it more. And as I did that, I realized that he was right. And I started leveraging those tools and those resources and that information. And it helped me through the years get promotions and then one day become an executive, And so, like, my path to becoming, an executive was not maybe the fast path as some other people. It didn't look like a lot of other people's, but it was my journey, and it's how I got to where I am and how I'm continuing to grow, right? Because I haven't made it or arrived, but it's cool sometimes to look at your journey and realize the people that helped you get where you are. And also, like, for me, just being thankful that someone was willing to see me and call me out, call me to his office and give me some information that I didn't have, right? So we're talking about the way things go. I got two more things to talk about. Look, finances is one I like kicking it about because for me, I often ask myself, like, again, y'all know I'm from Detroit. I grew up in poverty. And like, really what that just means to me is like, I grew up uneducated about money, right? That's the simple way to look at it. So when I'm uneducated about money, that means all the decisions that me and my family were making really weren't based on financial literacy and understanding when to buy, when to sell, how to invest, like, what not to buy, assets, liabilities. There's all these things that we just didn't understand, right? So for me, I went on a financial journey of my own. Let's just start with the basics of getting good credit. Let's just say getting a 700 credit score and saving $1,000. Like, those are two, like, very doable baseline goals for the average American, right? And I didn't have that, 12 years ago. I ain't had that. I really didn't. And so I ain't have a 700 credit score or $1,000. And so, when you think about those goals, I didn't know how to get that. And then I learned how to get it. And when I learned how to get it, I started trying to tell other people, my friends and my family, like, hey, this is how you get good credit. This is how you buy a house. This is how you buy a car at a good price and things like that. And I remember being so confused at why is it that I'm giving people the play? Like, I'm telling them straight up exactly how you get something or how you do something. And once they get the information, they're not following through. And I realized it's because they were offended by the order. Now, what I mean by that is sometimes people are energetic when they reach out to me and they're like, hey, I want to learn about money or I want to learn this. And, and this is like not a knock to those people. It's been a lot of people. So like a lot of friends, family, whoever, they know I love talking about finances and how to get out of poverty and how to grow. And so, like, in talking to people, I just always be confused. Like, man, like, I just gave you the answers to like the craziest tests, but it does require you to do work. And I thought about it like, yo, they're offended. They might not even know they're offended by the order, but they're offended by the answers they receive because they probably was expecting something much easier, much faster, and that required less discipline. And what happens is if you say, hey, I want to save $10,000, and then someone comes along and say, I'll tell you exactly how to save $10,000, but then it requires more work or more discipline than you were expecting, that can be offensive. Like, man, and what I mean by offensive is you could walk away and be like, dog, it don't take all that. And just you saying like, it don't take all that lets me know you're offended by order. Now, order just represents this is the way you get it. This is the sequence or the steps that you do to get this thing, or this is the natural way to achieve this goal, right? And it's a process. And a lot of people, let's stick on the money. If it come to saving $1,000, or let's say, let's be ambitious and save $10,000. First of all, some people might think, well, that's like, I can't do that. That's too much money. I don't make enough. Right. Well, again, you're offended by the order because you could tell people they can do something that they don't think they can do and it can offend them. And that's crazy to me. But it's like, I do this all the time. Like, all right, tell me how much money you make. Tell me what your bills are. Like, okay, we go through this whole process. I've done this with a lot of people. And once I start telling them, you make more money than you think you do. Oh, most people like, no, you don't get it. Like, you don't understand, bro. Like, no, because I got to do this, this, and that, and that. And it's like, no, fam, you got the money. See, a lot of people, when it come to finances, they think they're broke because they don't have money. Most of the times you broke because you don't have discipline. Woo, hold on. Let me just sip my tea, fam. Oh man. Because I know that just offended somebody. We're talking about being offended by order. You're offended by the way to do something. A lot of people make more money than they think they make. But what happens is when we do a little assessment, right, a little analysis of your financial situation, what is uncovered is your bad habits. And a lot of times people don't want to give up bad habits. So let's say, you're making your money and every week or every 2 weeks, whenever you get paid, you spending $100 on shoes, clothes, or something that's not a need. So you got your food, your rent is paid, you got gas. A lot of times when you're in poverty or you live in broke, because those are two different things, some people aren't actually in poverty, they're just broke, meaning they're just misusing the money they make and they're not actually beneath the poverty threshold. But what happens is you think that you deserve rewarding yourself. Now, again, I grew up, what up, Toya? How you doing? Tanya, I'm sorry, I saw Toya. Thought that was my cousin Toya, but this is Tanya. What up, sister? What happens is like I grew up in poverty, and like when you broke, you start rewarding yourself with liabilities. Now, what do I mean by that? Liabilities are just simply things that don't grow your money, but they cost you money. So a pair of Jordans is a liability, right? Unless you're in a resale business and that's completely different. It could be an asset. I get it. But for most of us, it's just a liability. So I talk to people and I'm like, okay, well, look, you spending $100, $200 on shoes or clothes or watches or something you don't need. And you thinking, well, that's my reward to myself for the work I've done. I'm like, okay, cool. That's not the best reward program for long term, but I get it. You think you deserve a watch. Cool. The problem with that mentality is, what if I showed you a way to take that same money, save it or invest it? If you save it in just flat rate, over 10 months, you'll have, $2,400, right? If you're doing $100 every 2 weeks, right? Like now, again, $100 every 2 weeks don't sound like a lot. Maybe 2,400 doesn't sound like a lot. Well, until your water heater goes out and it's $1,000, and now all of a sudden you have it because you resisted the shoes and the things that you thought were the reward. But to me, the reward is relieving yourself of the stress that would have came if your water heater would have went out, which is a need, and you don't have the money. So then you have to start calling around to people to get money for something that you actually had money for, but you prioritized a liability and a want over your own long-term needs. And that's not even biblical. But again, these are things that once you start giving people this information, it's actually offensive to them. You feel me? Tanya, like it's offensive to tell you the truth of how to make money, how to manage money, and how to grow money. Because what you wanted to hear was, hey, it's this easy. I just brought some miracle water from the Prophet online at 3 a.m., sprinkled it on my debit card, and I woke up and it was $100,000 in the bank. That's not how it works. Now, maybe you're an exception and you are LeBron James or, Kyrie Irving, or you are some multi-platinum singer. And yeah, some people, they don't have to do all that. They just got a gift or a talent that makes them millions of dollars and they're rich. Like that's a lot of people out there, and I'm not here to knock that. But for most of us, the everyday person, I don't have $1 million talent. I don't have I'm not doing something that's getting me one check for $10 million or $100 million. So I might have to learn another way. You feel me? And so for a lot of us, you got to be real about who you are, and you got to be real about, your own skill set and capabilities. Listen, the miracle water is real. I was up in the middle of the night watching TV one day recently, and I don't even stay up late or watch TV a lot, but I was up, and I don't want to say the prophet name. You know what I'm saying? The prophet, Profit. But the man of God was selling this water, and what was interesting to me was all of I don't know if they pay actors or not, but all of the people giving the testimony about how the miracle water did it for them. And, I bought this. The water free too. I almost ordered it, bruh. Don't order the water. Don't even do it. I don't know what's in that water. I don't know if that's spring water, sparkling water. I don't know what they doing with that water on the midnight infomercial, but the water free. I'm watching people get a testimonials like, yeah, I got the water, and then I checked my mail, and it was a whole check in there. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. You got a $500 check. Okay, I sprinkled the water, and I'm like, you know what, bro? The fact that this is what we actually want is just a bad look on us. Because what we really should want is to learn a skill that we could pass on to other people. That's when I talked about mentorship earlier. Mentors are people who have some experience because they've gone through a process, and then they can share it back with you. That's why I always say I don't respect people that can't tell me how they made their money. You ever meet somebody who just walk around with, and they spending, you assuming they got money, they acting like they got money, but they can't tell me how to do nothing. If you can't share something with me, some tangible steps and things that I can do to then go and grow mine, then really this is a waste of time, and you just stunting on me, and I ain't trying to hear it. You feel me? Listen, it's not the living water, bro. You right. It ain't. That water is not alive. You are right about that. It's the dead water, the still water, for sure. Don't order the miracle water online. On I don't know how they even shipping water through the mail. It's deep. I don't know, because the water on the commercial look like it's just in a little, that bug in a little bag. It's just. I can't think of the little plastic wrap, not plastic wrap, the Ziploc bags. They just shipping water in a bag. That's not good water. But I will water my plants with it to see how much they grow. My point with all of this part is just that whenever you give people a process and a way to do something, they could be offended by it. I see Tamajian, what's up, bro? He's a filmmaker. I think that's the right way to hopefully I'm giving you the right title, but he's a filmmaker. I've seen that he teaches classes and does different things. Now imagine that I go to his class because I'm like, all right, I want to learn how to do film, right? And then I go there with someone who's experienced. He puts out dope content. And then I go there and I'm offended because I'm like, man, it shouldn't take all this. I want to cut corners, and that's what a lot of us do. We want to cut corners, and then we start disrespecting the people that actually been there before, that want to give us the way to do it to be successful. There is a right way to do things. You can have success, but you have to be humble enough to listen to the mentorship and guidance of others, to receive what they're saying and to apply it to your life, to put in the work, to be disciplined and not be offended by the order. You get what I'm saying? But we need to actually receive order with joy. We need to be happy that people are willing to teach us how to do things and then put up the work. You feel what I'm saying? All right, I got the title right. I got it right. You feel me? Tanya, I don't know why they shipping it in that bag. So look, peep this though, y'all. A lot of us, we want the tree, we want the fruit. But when somebody tells us, oh, you have to first start off with the seed, find some good ground to plant it in, water it, tend to it, and then wait for the harvest, some of us walk away offended and thinking it don't take all that. But then at the same time, we looking at people with their trees and their fruit, and we want what's theirs. And we go back to those people and just expect them like, hey, you got extra fruit on your tree, just give it to me. In the Bible in Thessalonians, it say if a man don't work, he don't eat. Now, there's a broader story to that I don't want to go down that line, but essentially it's like, hey, if we're a group of people, we can help each other grow, but all of us have to be willing to carry our load. If there's a table with 4 ends to it and it's 4 of us sitting here, but you want me to carry up my end and drag the table's going to be harder for me to carry on my own than if everybody just grabs a corner, right? So when you think about wealth or growing, for me, it's like, I tell people all the time, like, yo, I'm trying to build and I'm trying to grow. But like, I ain't never gonna get where I'm trying to go if your expectation of me is to give you what's mine and you don't have to do anything. Like, bro, I'm not LeBron. I didn't make it to the league and I don't have $200 million. And even if I did, I would not give it to you in that way because it's actually not helpful for you. It's harmful. And I'm telling y'all right now, if you want to offend somebody when it comes to money, tell them that they have to do something too. That's very offensive. And I understand that it's offensive and why people are offended by order, but it's also why we fail. Now, let me now go to the word of God. We're going to end this looking at the Bible. I am going to go to Genesis chapter 3. You feel me? You feel me? Do you feel me? Genesis chapter 3, that ain't the view I want. That's the view I want. All right, so when I look at this, peep this, y'all. Genesis chapter 3, this is where, this is a story of Adam and Eve, right? I love that it says this right at the top. I'm reading the New Living Translation. It says, the man and woman sin. Now, I'm telling you, in the world we live in today, there's so much to unpack from this story. I ain't even going to be able to unpack this in a way that's going to do it justice. But I do want to look at from the top. In the world today, there's so much man versus woman, right? And then, like, when I think about this man versus woman thing, it's deep because the way society approaches marriage or relationships and talking about them, it's really in a way that's counterproductive to the traditional family growing God's way. Most of the things that are put out into the world today are actually to influence and encourage that God's way and view of marriage and family is not the right way. Again, people are offended by order. So people are offended if you say, as an example, the man and the woman sin. So this isn't about man versus woman, as a lot of the conversations when you talk about marriage and relationships are in the world today. This is about man and woman. And I want to take a deeper dive into understanding and thinking through some of the different dynamics of Adam and Eve, and then asking myself, what kind of Adam am I? What kind of Adam are you? What kind of Eve are you? What kind of man are you? What kind of woman are you? Meaning, like, what would you do in this scenario? How can we look at what Adam and Eve did and receive some mentorship through the word of God, and not be offended by God's order? Because one of the things that I realize in the world today, when you talk about man and woman, people are offended by the actual roles that God created us to walk in. I'm going to take a sip of my tea to let you think through that and maybe get mad at me. They mad right now. I don't know if we're going to make it through this show. The 2 people that's watching is about to cut you off, bro. This is gonna make people mad. Like it's upsetting though, Jermaine. Like, you can't say stuff like this and think that people aren't gonna get mad. You know they're angry. Sip your tea and you get through this without making people angry because you know they're offended by order. People are literally offended by the way God wants things to go. God said, water the seed. People want to milk the seed. They want to change the rules because it's offensive to tell someone that this is how you do it and this actually works. Oh my God. What's wrong with you? All right, I'm sorry. I'm back, guys. I'm here. I'm back. I do want to talk to y'all. What up, Dre? Appreciate you watching, bro. The man and woman sin. So right off the top, Genesis chapter 3, this subtitle in the New Living Translation is offensive because no one wants to hear that both sinned. No, what we want to do is we want to blame someone. A lot of times we want to point the finger and look at what someone else did wrong. And it doesn't mean that someone else didn't do wrong, but sometimes it means that we both did wrong. And if you want to think about your marriage, and even if you're single and think about like wanting to be married or the path that God has you on, it's like you don't want to be out here buying into all this man versus woman material that's on the internet, bro. I know it's spicier than my stuff. It's going to go more viral, get more views, get more likes, more shares, and more comments, but I ain't worried about that. What I'm worried about is, can we put something out in the world that lines up with God's point of view? Cool. All right, so let's start reading. The serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild animals the Lord God had made. One day he asked the woman, did God really say you must not eat the fruit from any of the trees in the garden? Okay, I'm going to read through this and then I'm going to come back to some stuff. Of course we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, the woman replied. It's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden that we are not allowed to eat. God said, you must not eat it or even touch it. If you do, you will die. Verse 4, you won't die, the serpent replied to the woman. God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing both good and evil. The woman was convinced. Woo, that's heavy. She saw that the tree was beautiful and its fruit looked delicious, and she wanted the wisdom it would give her. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. Then she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too. At that moment, their eyes were open, and they suddenly felt shame at their nakedness, so they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. All right, we're going to skip down a little bit. God comes in. All right, they find out they naked. They naked out here. God, like, who told you? And this was, what verse? I'm sorry. Verse 12 is, let's go to 11. Who told you that you were naked? The Lord God asked. Have you eaten from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat? The man replied, it was the woman you gave me who gave me the fruit and I ate it. Adam, bro. Just like a man. Just blame the woman. Then the Lord God asked the woman, what have you done? She said, the serpent deceived me. She replied, that's why I ate it. Then the Lord God said to the serpent, all right, start cursing the serpent, all this. I will cause hostility between you and the woman. All right, cool. Then he said to the woman, verse 16, I will sharpen the pain of your pregnancy, and in pain you will give birth, and you will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you. Oh my gosh. That's offensive. Want to offend somebody? Tell them that. Genesis 3:16. You will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you. That's offensive, God. Now let's think about this. You're looking at Genesis chapter 3, right? We just scrolled through it. And what's interesting to me is there's all these little nuances and dynamics happening where the man made a mistake and the woman made a mistake, right? I'm going to stop sharing and we just going to kick it through. And I want you to go back to that yourself if you want to go deeper. But let's actually unpack a couple things. First and foremost, I find it interesting that Adam was letting the serpent talk to his wife. Okay, you know what? I got to go back to sharing my screen. I got to share it because it's a couple things we got to look at in here that's kind of like, it's really foul. It's really foul when you really look at it, bro. All right. So it said one day, this is verse 3, chapter 1 still. One day he asked the woman, did God really say you must not eat fruit from any of the trees in the garden? So the first problem I have is this, is that the serpent went right to the woman. Ooh, he went right to the woman, right? What the Bible outlines as the weaker vessel. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But he went to the woman. I find it interesting. If at the very least, I find it interesting that you got this evil figure, right, that walks in. And then here's the crazy part, that even when God asked Eve why she did it, let me go down, Let's go down. Verse 13, then the Lord God asked the woman, what have you done? Oh no, I'm sorry. This is when Adam. The man replied, it was the woman you gave me who gave me the fruit and I ate it. Now, what's interesting from my perspective of Adam was like, bro, you were with her. How do I know you were with her? Let's go up. Verse 6, the woman was convinced. So you allowed this serpent to kick it with your girl and to convince her. So to me, Adam, you already out of pocket. What kind of Adam are you? You already out of pocket, Adam, because you letting this evil figure kick it and whisper some stuff in your girl's ear that is now convincing her. And I know you were here because it said this. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. Then she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too. I find that to be a huge problem, Adam, that you sat there, did not protect your home, did not step up as a leader, and did not interfere or interrupt when your wife was in this scenario and she's being influenced by this bad information and this bad figure. Now, keep in mind, the man and the woman sinned. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to point out issues within the conversation that I think we can grow from, whether we married or not, whether we single and praying to be married, whatever your situation is. I think it's important to understand God's intention in this scenario, and then where both the man and the woman went wrong, so that when I'm in my everyday life, because we all make these mistakes, I'm just as guilty as anyone else. When you're in your everyday life, we could correct some of these mistakes we making, right? And we can stop being offended by order and start looking at the fact that, like, yo, God has a purpose and a plan for my marriage. He has a way for it to be successful. But if I get caught up in my feelings and her feelings, then we gonna be out of pocket. We gonna be operating outside of our roles. And if I'm operating outside of my role, the problem is that I'm allowing a serpent in the house. All right, cool. So what's interesting to me, and I just got to explore this, I need to call out that this part right here is just me exploring. This isn't in the Bible, what I'm about to say. This is me like trying to explore and like think through, like, why would Adam not say anything? Now, this is me now just thinking of modern scenarios. Adam might not say something because, I don't know, maybe his girl is controlling, right? It did say down there, hey, you a desire to control him, right? Maybe Adam was thinking, well, I know she having this conversation. I don't want to come off too aggressive, and I don't want to, hey, black girls rock. I don't want to be the one that's like, I'm just thinking through all these modern things and the reasons why a husband would be silent in that scenario. And I can just imagine a scenario where he's thinking, me trying to stop this conversation is going to have us arguing later. And so he silenced himself. The reason I'm calling this out is because I do believe that there are times, like, if God called you, Adam, to protect your wife. And in that scenario, maybe because you were afraid of her rejection or afraid that she wanted to have this conversation or whatever. And I'm not saying by any means this is where this stuff get tricky. I'm not saying he should have controlled her or something like that. Just hear me out. What I'm saying, though, is God gave him a role as a man, as a leader of his household or his garden hold. God made him the leader, but in that scenario, he didn't lead and protect. And that's a huge problem. I don't care, Adam, if she doesn't want you to play the role that God told you to play. Don't be offended by the order. God told you protect. And you got to ask yourself, is it more harm in being silent to shield your family from evil, right? Right? Because that's what happened. They ate the apple. He followed her lead, actually. So first he was silent, allowed the serpent to talk to his wife, allowed his wife to be convinced. It doesn't seem like he challenged anything. He didn't push back. Then sat there and watched while she ate it. Then she gave it to him and he ate it. I'm I'm not saying Adam is a weak man. I'm saying in that scenario, he operated in some and showed some weak tendencies, right? Because he was supposed to stop that. He wasn't supposed to, like, all right, maybe you let the conversation go. Then she convinced. Like, but you don't let him give her the apple, bro. You stop that. You step in like, oh, hold on, bro. Hey, ain't nobody giving my girl no apples, bro. We not doing that. You stop the apple. Like, you don't even let that happen. But so many men are afraid to be men now because the culture, right? And I'm relating it to today, the culture, the environment is offended by the order and the role that a man is supposed to play. So men are taking a step back. Men don't want to be leaders no more because, women can do anything men can do. I get it. Not saying you can't. I'm just saying there's a way that God created it. And I am not offended by being a man. I don't think it's offensive for a woman to be the woman that God called her to be. See, I don't think we have to be offended by order because I don't think God's order is bad, but I think we have been convinced by the serpent to think otherwise. And as an Adam, I'm like, nah, not only am I not eating that fruit, I'm not going to sit here and let you just convince everybody in my circle that that's the right thing to do, bro. And I understand that hey, Adam might have been silent because he didn't want no backlash. Adam might have been silent because he wanted his video to get a lot of likes. It's like, I feel it, Adam. I'm going to sacrifice the likes and the virality of a video to speak truth and to try to help somebody. And to also stand on the side that says it's not offensive to be a man that God called you to be. We ain't talking about being abusive. We not talking about aggression. We talking about there's a healthy way to be a man. There's a healthy way to be a woman. But you a protector, bro. You don't let nobody do that. You don't let somebody walk in your house today. Look, I'm just going to be real with you. If somebody come in my house and knock on my door and try to sell us some special soap, my wife know I'm stepping in like, hold on, bro. What you talking about? Yeah, we do Pine Sol, bro. We not doing that. It's okay. So I first wanted to just point out there are some things that Adam did, but I'm gonna tell you maybe the coldest and the worst thing Adam did in this whole scenario to me. And he literally said, what did he say? Let's see. Verse 12. The man replied, "It was the woman you gave me who gave me the fruit and I ate it." Boy, oh boy. See, Adam, you can't be quiet, not play your role as a man, stuff get messed up, and then he blamed really God and Eve. He said, the woman you gave me. Like, he wanted God to know, like, yo, you gave me this girl. She came in here and gave me some fruit and I ate it. But God is like, now God didn't say this here, but how can I say? When you think through, like, but God called you to be a leader. He didn't, in that scenario, you were never supposed to follow. And I don't even think that's her fault because you sat there quiet. Now, maybe it's her fault if you speak up and then she want to argue with you. Let the man speak and da-da-da. Y'all know how stuff go. It happens. We're all guilty to some capacity. It's okay. Let's talk about it honestly. I'm not trying to offend you, but I do know that people are offended by order. So I understand that just the simple order that God has in place for man and woman could offend some people. I should probably sip my tea, what's left of it. Perfect timing. All right, now let's go back, people, my good people. And let's see, what did Eve, where was Eve out of pocket, right? This is gonna be quick. It's not even that bad. Now, Eve, first things first. When the serpent is talking to you, right? In reality, you probably, like, this the first man and the first woman, y'all. Like, so they was new. They was brand new out the box. I get it. But you at least could have consulted with him to say, like, what do you think? Right? Like you could have maybe empowered him, right? A little bit. Like, hey, what you think about this? Because my man's saying something different than what God told us. Because it wasn't like Eve didn't know what God said. Because the first thing she said was what God said, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, of course we may eat from the fruit of the trees in the garden. It's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden, right? So that was the order. That was part of the order of this situation. Is like, yo, we can eat the fruit freely. Just don't touch that one. And y'all know how life is. It's the one that we not supposed to touch that the light is shining bright. You just looking like, that fruit looks so good. Like that fruit, it's like you got 50 trees over here, though. But that fruit right there that I'm not supposed to touch, that's the one that look good. I get it. I understand. But Eve, maybe you could have empowered him. Maybe you could have consulted him, right? But she was convinced. And I do think sometimes, man, just thinking about modern women, oh, once you convinced and you feel something emotionally, it's like, let's put all logic aside. Let's not even think about what God said. I don't care what hey, I want some fruit today. This is what I feel like eating. I'm about to eat this fruit. And look, she saw that the tree was beautiful and it looked delicious. And look, come on, women. I know how y'all are. Like, that's when them emotions and them feelings come in. Like, yo, it's beautiful. It looked delicious. It seemed good to me. And she wanted the wisdom it would give her, right? And that's where Eve, to me, was coveting. Remember I said earlier, it's like we can find ourselves, we can go from admiration to idolizing, and then you covet. You want that, right? She wanted that wisdom in that tree. That's sinful. You want something that God told you to stay away from, all right? And then, so she took it and ate it. Then she gave it to her husband. I think he wrong for receiving it, but I think she just as wrong for like, yo, not only am I about to eat this fruit that look delicious and beautiful, and sometimes our sin is guided by what we want to the point that we will just open others up to it because misery loves company, maybe, or maybe just the foolishness of like, well, I'm convinced everybody has some. And that's the power of influence. And I think sometimes even women, even in marriage, don't realize how much influence they can have over their husband. Even though a husband is a leader, he's influenced by his wife. He loves his wife, right? And so there are some times where it's like you can have a man doing some junk he never thought he would ever want to do. Like, why am I skydiving right now? Well, because your wife is fine. And she said, if you skydive, you good with her. Okay, cool. So now we skydiving, right? So women, I think it's important for you to understand the influence that you can have over your man in the role that you play. And sometimes when you start indulging in the wrong thing, you might be bringing your whole family with you. You might be opening doors for other people to be introduced to sin without even knowing it because you're that influential, right? Cool. What I will say about Eve that I did like better than Adam was at least she said the serpent deceived me. So she's acknowledging that she was deceived, and that's why I ate it. I do appreciate that Eve did not just rat Adam out and blame him the way he did her. Let's see what Dre said. I believe Adam already told her what God said because she quotes a little bit more of the word, but got some of the. Okay, I'm not mad at that either, right? Those are those perspectives where, like I'm not gonna act like just my opinion or my thought about it is the truth, right? Because there's some possibilities because it's not actually mentioned there. So I think that's a cool perspective. But ultimately, I think the point of what I'm trying to say is like there's order in the roles that God called us to play as men and women, as husband and wives. And all of us at some point can be deceived and not play our roles properly. But I think it's important to get in your proper role in the way that God defined them, because when you get out of order, you open up this deception and you can start being deceived by things. And one of the craziest things about deception is that there's a period of time where you believe it. That's why you were deceived. Like you actually believed and were convinced of the wrong thing. And so I think it's important for us to try to hold each other up as husbands and wives, and we all make mistakes and fall short. I get it. But hey, it's nothing wrong with like taking a step back and saying, where can I improve? As a husband, what kind of Adam am I? How can I get better? And not be offended by the fact that God called me to a particular role. Like there's no reason, like there's so many times like people are offended. Let me go to Proverbs 31 cuz it's like, bro, like I think it's twisted in the way we live in the world today. Like people act like being a woman is like a negative thing or something, like being a godly woman, the way that God the role that God called a woman to play is an amazing role. Like, bro, there's a lot of honor in this. So, all right, let's see. A wife of noble character. All right. So, who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. Virtuous and capable. I love the word capable in this sense because when we think of capabilities today, it's always in the context that a woman could do anything that a man could do. It's like, okay, no, like that. I don't know. I don't like that terminology because I get it sometimes in certain contexts, but to me, it's like, hey, a good wife is capable. Like you have your own capabilities. Like you don't even have to be, again, it's not man versus woman. When God created Adam and then brought Eve, he didn't say, "Hey, I think you need someone to compete with." He said, "No, I think you need some help." That means she has some capabilities that did not originally exist in Adam. God saw Adam and said, "I think we need something else." So God had a formula. He had a purpose for both of these roles. But what we're doing kind of today that's kind of weird is like one of the roles is saying, well, I could do everything you could do. Well, if you're doing everything I'm doing and I'm doing everything I'm doing, who doing what God created you to do? And then that's where the offense come in modern day society. I get it. I understand. Her husband can trust her and she will greatly enrich his life. Woo, she will greatly enrich his life. This goes right back to a couple things. This goes back to Genesis when Adam created Eve and as this help to enrich, there was a need. I think about he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains the favor of the Lord. So like, yeah, like a woman, a good wife enriches the life of her husband. There's nothing like, that's a good role. That like this ain't a bad role. I think we have to get out of this mindset of offense to think that a woman in the way that God created her is somehow a negative. Like it ain't nothing negative about that, right? She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She finds wool and flax and busily spins it. She's like a merchant ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household. My mom used to do that all the time. Thank you, Mom. And plan the day's work for her servant girls. She goes to inspect a field and buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She's a businesswoman. She inspected a field. She bought it. Like, yeah, she doing business. She's energetic. She's strong. She's a hard worker. She makes sure her dealings are profitable. Her lamp burns late into the night. Her hands are busy. Listen, she extends a hand to the poor, open arms to the needy. She has no fear of winter for her household. Everyone has warm clothes. She makes her own bedspread. Her husband is well known at the city gates where he sits with the other civic leaders. She makes linens and sashes. Like she is clothed with strength and dignity. She laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Listen, people. There's nothing to be offended about in the way that God called things to be. I know that sometimes when you hear some information or some direction and it's not what you wanted in life, you could be offended by it. But the word of God only is here to offend lies. Like the truth and goodness is what it's about. Like, so it's like when God gives us direction, it's something good. It's to produce good. When God say like, yo, I put a man here for this and a woman here for this, it's to produce good. When a God created Adam and said like, yo, like he has a need, he needs help, I'm giving you this woman. That ain't nothing to be ashamed of. That's not a bad thing to be the answer to the question. Like, imagine God created Adam. It's like, he created him. He like, something missing though. Like, I don't know, like something missing. It's like you created a CD player, right? I'm going back to the 90s. You created a CD player. It's a nice CD player, like great. It got a plug and it plug up, and you like, wait a minute, but ain't nobody created outlets yet. We need some electricity to help this CD player come to life. And that's where it's like, hey, take this plug, you put it in this, and it's like, whoa, we got some power. And I believe that's where God, the way God intended for it to be. But like we like just offended by good stuff now. And I think one of the things we have to be cautious about in the world today is we spending a lot of times being offended by the good things while we're being deceived and welcoming the evil things. And there's so much evil that we're convinced of, and to the point that I'm even seeing believers now arguing for evil. There are believers every day arguing on behalf of evil because they have been deceived and they don't know the difference between God's way and the evil way now. And so now they think I'm supposed to eat the fruit that God told me not to eat. But I'm here to tell you, God said, don't eat it. Don't eat that fruit. Listen, I appreciate y'all watching and listening today. And I hope y'all have an amazing, amazing